Joining us now, as promised, on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline, the man, the myth, the legend, the one and only ScoopB. Make sure you following him on Twitter at ScoopB. Brandon Robinson, basketball insider. He was in Chicago all weekend. He's also one of the most plugged-in men in all of the basketball scene, so we're glad to have him now on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me. I'm still in Chicago. I'm actually in the green room getting ready to do some television, but I realized something. You said 2:30. It's 1:30 here. I was like, wait, I'm getting adjusted to this. But you kind of saved me. Lorenz Tate just walked in here, and he's actually taping before me for this show on Fox and going in with you guys. So it's always a pleasure to talk with you guys. Thanks for having me.
Well, I appreciate you jumping on and making some time. Let's first start, though, with I want to get your impression of the weekend, because for those of us watching on TV, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday, there was an energy coming through the television. It felt like the entire weekend, this was energy-wise, entertainment-wise, this may have been the best NBA All-Star Weekend of at least the last 20 to 30 years.
It was exciting, and I think it was exciting for a lot of reasons. Number one, for a guy like myself who fell in love with the game of basketball in 1991. My dad is from the west side of Chicago, so for me personally, it was a full circle moment just to be here covering the festivities and everything that's going on. But I think bigger than that, it's the house that Michael built, and Michael's the guy Kobe looked up to, the late Kobe Bryant, who passed away a few weeks ago in a tragic helicopter accident along with 7 other people, including his daughter, which would make 8. But I think in this instance, it was a new energy, if you will. I mean, I think you really saw the old guard. Like, it's crazy to think LeBron is the old guard, and you're entering into a new space with the Trae Youngs, the Zion Williamses, all of the new blood that's coming into the NBA, and even Devin Booker getting an appearance this year, and after Damian Lillard got hurt. But I think there was just an energy that was there, as you said, just resonating because we're still in the basketball world mourning the loss of Kobe Bryant, one of the greats, and you got to pay homage. I mean, even when you look at the city of Chicago at large, it was very well represented. Even though Kanye West did not perform, I'm told Kanye was actually supposed to perform. He had a suite, and he was supposed to do some things, and then the last minute he pulled out. A leak sort of shared with me this afternoon. But what I can share with you is that you had Common, you had Chance the Rapper. It was just all of the right things hitting at the right time. And and then there was a game. The target score was 157, and Anthony Davis missed the first free throw, made the second, and here we are. Team LeBron won the game last night.
Yeah, outside of the guys on the court, I felt Common won the weekend hands down because the guy is a linguistic maestro. He's incredible. So I felt having him in that situation was totally perfect. When you look at also the weekend, it felt like all the players, Billy over here, he talked about how he walked away satisfied watching the game. It felt like the players were also satisfied after that game last night as well, Brandon.
So you were garbled a little bit, but from what I heard, I did hear you say that Common won the weekend, which I think is true. And I'll add that I just think that there was a Chicago spirit that was nostalgic, that was worth paying attention to leading into. And with the game, I'll add, I think I was talking to David Aldridge after the game last night, and one thing we both touched and agreed on is that game actually made folks play defense. Many people complain about defense being a thing in the NBA All-Star game. Guys were actually playing hard.
Yep.
The refs were restraining from giving technical fouls. And, because guys wanted to win. And, I mean, everybody wins, even from the perspective of a charity getting anywhere from $100,000 to $300,000. The only thing missing was Oprah. You get a car. You get a car. He gets a car. She gets a car. Everybody gets a car. Like, literally everybody won over the weekend. Even with the kids that were there from the local area that were sitting in the stands. You had red shirts, blue shirts, everything, what have you. And then, I'll also add this. I was with Allen Iverson, local guy in this area, at the Mitchell and Ness brunch. And, he and I talked after, and he was rocking a Kobe Bryant, number 8, Mitchell and Ness jersey. And he had on the white and purple Kobe edition Kobe Bryant, Allen Iverson question sneakers. What a great way to tribute one of the greats. It was very much Kobe infused. And, I'm as an ambassador for basketball myself, I'm very pleased with the way that the league handled this weekend.
Brandon Robinson joining us here on the Boardwalk on the Hotline on 97.3 ESPN. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at ScoopB. That's ScoopB on Twitter for all your basketball insight. So looking now ahead to after the All-Star break, teams like the Sixers, the Lakers, how much of that energy from the All-Star break can be carried into the final 27-plus games of the regular season?
Well, I'll add before I answer your question, I thought it was pretty funny and interesting that Ben Simmons got a block or a steal off of Joel Embiid, and they weren't teammates in that instance in that All-Star game yesterday. Was that a block or a steal? I
can't remember. Steal.
Okay. It looked almost like a block. He was so far up. But, I think that when you look at the Sixers, I spoke with Tobias Harris last week, and, he talked. I asked him who was their biggest competitor, and he told me that, they're their own competitor. And I think that that was a true statement. I think, however, though, that when you look at the NBA's Eastern Conference, Milwaukee is the team to beat. He's not necessarily going to say that, but that's the truth. Milwaukee is the team to beat. And I'll add, you got teams like the Indiana Pacers, who are a dark horse team in the NBA's Eastern Conference. But when you look at the Sixers, I talked to Elton Brand last week, actually, and we talked about championships. And he said some of the best advice that he received from a mentor was, the city belongs to the fans, and their goal is championship. Publicly and privately, that's what Elton Brand is talking about, I'm told. And, his heart is set on, retaining Brett Brown for now. I know that was a thing a couple of weeks ago. I remember being at the Sixers-Milwaukee Bucks game a couple of weeks ago, and, when they announced his name in the introductions, they were booing him. I think that solidarity is definitely a thing that they're preaching, and I like the pieces that the Sixers added. Glenn Robinson III, he comes from a Golden State Warriors background. He told me that Draymond Green really rubbed off on him during his time with the Warriors, and Alec Burks, you got all those guys that are trying to find their way within that Brett Brown offense, and I still think Philly is missing a veteran, and I'm all for Jamal Crawford. They could use him.
David Fizdale said last week that the problem for the Sixers is not personnel, it's personalities. Do you agree with that assessment?
Yeah, but maybe not in the way that most people think. I think that when enough people start saying things in the media, people begin to believe them. Everybody believes or thinks that Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons don't get along, and, they don't have to be the best of friends. I think a lot of times people think players have to be the best of friends. And I think that, when you look at a team like the Lakers, like those guys are actually friends. Anybody you talk to on that I speak to, on and off the record on the Lakers have shared, those guys are actually friends. There's like a group text going on. So comparatively with the Sixers, the Sixers, I don't think that it's a fair assessment to think that those guys don't get along. They're just a different personality, and that's okay. But I think what the Sixers are missing, I think they're missing J.J. Redick and Jimmy Butler being gone. I think that's the problem. You literally signed Tobias Harris, and you don't have J.J. or Jimmy. They're missing that. They need a veteran leader.
Hey, ScoopB, this is Billy Schweim. Scoop, it's not a requirement. It's a luxury to be friends off the court. I understand that. But do you think that it's about being professional, too, to be able to work together on the court. But do you think that they can get past the two individuals, Embiid and Simmons, can get past it and kind of finally put it together and work? Or do you think that that's an impossibility, or
I think if the Sixers don't at least make it to the conference finals this year, I think that those conversations that we were having last offseason could become a thing. But I think right now, I think this is the year to get it done. Because here's the thing. I think this year, more than any other year, there's such an unknown in years past. I'll even exclude last year. You look at the Warriors, you look at the Cavs, it was them every year. Of course, LeBron went to the Western Conference, and, this year the Warriors won't make it to playoffs, which is likely. But when you look at this year, it's so up in the air. It's not a foregone conclusion that the Lakers and the Clippers could even, one of those teams could even make it into the West. Represent the Western Conference, and the East is wide open. But everybody assumes it's Milwaukee, and I think early in the season, everybody, including Charles Barkley and Stephen A. Smith, for example, were saying, that the Sixers could win it. But it seems like they're just missing something. I don't know what that something is. I think part of it is veteran leadership. I think part of it is Joel Embiid's ability to focus in the paint. At times, I think he's fallen in love with that jumper, and but that's today's NBA culture. When I look at Joel Embiid, he reminds me of a hybrid between Chris Webber and Hakeem Olajuwon. He has Hakeem's footwork. He has Chris Webber's ability to dribble, to take anybody off the dribble, but also post up when he needs to. But I think at times, sometimes he has the height advantage, and he doesn't always exploit that on the offensive side against his defender. I think that with Ben Simmons, everybody focuses on his jumper. I think you can be a successful NBA player or a point guard without having a solid jumper. Jason Kidd struggled with a jumper for 8 years before he had a solid one towards the end of his career when he won a championship. I think there's a lot of talk, and I think there needs to be less talk, more action, and just doing. But again, I still think Milwaukee is their biggest challenge.
Hey, Scoop, do you think having Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons at another All-Star game together and being around all these All-Stars, do you think that could rub off on them and make them realize that it's not just about themselves?
Well, I think greatness impacts greatness. I think when you are a player and you're in their example with Embiid and Simmons, and you're around LeBron James, you're around Kawhi Leonard, you're around Giannis Antetokounmpo, like you're around your peers. You're not around the 15th man or the 14th man or 13th man. Everybody's the man in their locker room. Why wouldn't you be inspired? I think greatness rubs off on greatness. I mentioned to you earlier that I was sitting with David Aldridge, and I told him a story of how he inspired me as a kid. And I told him about something he said to me when I was younger, having started my career young. And he remembered that. And I told him, man, you are somebody that I looked up to. Comparatively, when you look at Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons and who they are with in that locker room, I'm sure you pick up trays. I'm sure you pick up little things that carry over. You look at a guy like Nikola Jokic, who plays in the Denver Nuggets and who's arguably the Nuggets who get overlooked a lot because they're not the Clippers or the Lakers. He hit a couple of key shots last night in the All-Star game, and he's getting love from LeBron and Kawhi and Chris Paul, who Chris Paul played lights out in that game last night too. To go back to your question, who could not be inspired by somebody you may have looked up to or someone you played in the AAU with? Iron sharpens iron. So I think that going and playing the last 27 games of the season, I think the Sixers are off to a great start because they're on a 3-game winning streak. They beat Memphis, they beat they beat the Bulls, and then they beat the Clippers. And many people didn't think they would pull that off. So I think if they continue with that momentum from the All-Star game into the playoffs, Houston, we may have a problem.
He is the best follow on Twitter of all NBA Twitter, at ScoopB. You want to follow him for all of your NBA, basketball, Sixers, Eastern Conference, all the insights you need. It's at ScoopB on Twitter. Brandon, appreciate you making the time today.
Gentlemen, thanks for having me, and I hope I was fair and balanced. I wasn't too hard on the Sixers.
Listen, we love the honesty. We always appreciate that, my friend.
Yes, sir. Good to talk to you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Again, that's at ScoopB on Twitter. You want to follow him for all your basketball, NBA, Sixers. He's got it all covered there at ScoopB on Twitter.